here we'll practice counting in other bases, starting with base 4. This one wants us to start with 0. So if we're counting in base 4, we would count, you can imagine counting on your hands, right? So 0 means I'd hold up no fingers, and then 1 finger, 2 fingers, 3 fingers. And then imagine that we only had 4 fingers. Well, then that means when I want to count beyond 4, I'm now going to remember that I already counted on my fingers once. So as soon as I get to 4, I would say, oh, I've got one group of 4 and 0 left over. So I'm remembering that now I've counted on my hands one time because I only have 4 fingers. And now I'm ready to move on. So now I start counting again. Say, okay, I'm going to remember that I had one group of 4 already. And now I'm counting again one more. And so then I would count again, one group of 4 and 2 left over, one group of 4 and 3 left over. And then I get to, now if I do another one, I have another group of 4. So if I have 4 left over, those 4 get regrouped. So now I have 2 groups of 4 with 0 left over. So I'm going to keep doing this. So when I count my next numeral, I would say, okay, now I've got 2 groups of 4 with 1 left over, 2 groups of 4 with 2 left over, 2 groups of 4 with 3 left over, and then next would be 2 groups of 4 with 4 left over, but as soon as I have 4, I regroup. So now that I have another group of 4, I would say, oh, now I have 3 groups of 4 with 0 left over. So then 3 groups of 4 and 1, 3 groups of 4, and then 2, 3 groups of 4, and then 3. And then I'm gonna go up by 1. So what's gonna happen if I add another 1 to this, right? And you can imagine this with the base 10 blocks, or with, in this case, base 4, right? So right now I have 3 groups of 4 each and 3 left over. That's what I have right now with this 3, 3, right? We're assuming, I'm not writing it each time, but we're assuming that technically this would be like writing the little sub 4. So these are all numbers in base 4. So if I were to add another unit to this, now all of a sudden I've got another group of 4. So that group of 4 gets regrouped as a rod, right? So now I've got, these are gone. I have no units left over, but now I've got 4 groups of 4. But as soon as I get 4 of something, it regroups again. So these 4 rods now get regrouped as a flat or as a group of 4 squared or 16. So this goes over to the next place value. So now I have one group of 16, 0 rods, 0 units. So 1 flat, 0 rods, 0 units, or one group of 4 squared, 0 groups of 4, and 0 ones. And now I keep going. So next would be one group of 16, 0 groups of 4, 1 unit, one group of 16, 0 groups of 4, 2 units, one group of 16, 0 groups of 4, 3 units. And then now I'm going to get to my 4th unit, so that's going to give me another group of 4. So now I have one group of 16, one group of 4, and 0 left over. So next would be 1 flat, 1 rod, 1 unit, 1 flat, 1 rod, 2 units, 1 flat, 1 rod, 3 units. But since we're in base 4, as soon as I get 4 units, I regroup that again. So now it's 1 flat, 2 rods, 0 units. 1 flat, 2 rods, 1 unit. 1 flat, 2 rods, 2 units. And I should never see any symbols other than 0, 1, 2, and 3. So if you've written a 4 at any point, you know you've made a mistake. So now if I go from 1, 2, 3, if I increase that by 1 and get another unit, that gives me another group of 4. So now I have 1 flat, another group of 4, so now 3 groups of 4 or 3 rods, and 0 left over. Then 1, 3, 1, 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, 3, and then finally, if I add again, so I'm going to use my flats, rods, and units again to do this. So right now I have 1 flat, 3 rods, and 3 units. That's what the 1, 3, 3 stands for. If I go to the next one, I'm adding another unit to this. So now that makes another group of 4. That becomes another rod. So those are gone. There's none left over. Now I have 4 rods. So that gets regrouped as another flat, and that's gone. So now I have 2 flats, or 2 groups of 16, 0 rods left over, or 0 groups of 4, and 0 units, or 0 ones left over. So then let's do the same thing in base 3 this time. So this time they want us to start at 1. So remember, in base 3, we're only going to need 3 symbols. Those symbols are 0, 1, and 2. So when you're in base 3, you should never be using this symbol, right? That one, it should not appear anywhere. So start with 1. So this time we're not starting with 0, we're starting with 1. But it's the same idea. So start with 1 and then 2. So imagine we have 1 unit, then we have 2 units. And then if I go to the next numeral, I'm adding another unit to that, but now I have a group of 3. And so in base 3, every time I get 3 units, that becomes a rod. So now I have 1 rod with 0 units. So 1 rod with 0 units. And then if I go up to the next numeral, that's 1 rod with 1 unit. Go to the next numeral, I have 1 rod with 2 units. Go to the next numeral, now I've got 3 again. Anytime I have 3, that gets regrouped. And so now those 3 units are gone and they become another rod. So now I have 2 rods, 0 units. If I go to the next numeral, I add another unit. So that's 2 rods, 1 unit. Go to the next numeral, now I have 2 rods, 2 units. Go to the next numeral, now I have 3 units. That gets regrouped as another rod. So now that's gone. But now I have 3 rods, and so 3 rods gets regrouped as the flat. And now that's gone. So now I have 1 flat, 0 rods, 0 units. So notice I've not written a 3 anywhere. So now if I go to the next numeral, I'm going to add another unit. So now I have 1 flat, 0 rods, 1 unit. Add another unit to that. Now I have 1 flat, 0 rods, 2 units. Add another unit to that. Now I have a group of 3, so that becomes a rod. And now those units got regrouped, so they're gone. So now I have 1 flat, 1 rod, 0 units. Move to the next numeral, I add a unit to that, so now I have 1 flat, 1 rod, 1 unit. Next would be 1 flat, 1 rod, 2 units. Next, I get a 3rd unit, which gets regrouped. So those 3 units become another rod, and now those units are gone. So this is 1 flat, 2 rods, and 0 units. When I move to the next numeral, I'd add another unit to that. So now we have 1 flat, 2 rods, 1 unit. Next numeral gives me another unit, 1 flat, 2 rods, 2 units. Next numeral gives me another unit, but now I have 3. So those 3 units get regrouped and become a rod, which means those units are now gone. But those 3 rods get regrouped. Since we're in base 3, they become a flat, and now those 3 rods are gone. So now I have 2 flats, 0 rods, 0 units. Go to the next numeral, I would add another unit. 2 flats, 0 rods, 1 unit. Next numeral adds another unit. 2 flats, 0 rods, 2 units. Next numeral adds another unit. Now I have 3 units. That gets regrouped as a rod. So those units are now gone. And I have 2 flats, 1 rod, 0 units. Add another unit to that. 2, 1, 1. Add another unit to that. 2, 1, 2. Add another unit to that. Those 3 units get regrouped as a rod. And now those units are gone because they got regrouped. So we have 2 flats, 2 rods, 0 units. go to the next numeral and I'd add a unit. So this is 2, 2, 1, and that's where I'm stopping for this problem. Actually decided to go a little bit further. So if I were to go to the next one, I would add another unit. So now I'm at 2 flats, 2 rods, 2 units. If I were to go to the next one, this would give me 3 units, which gets regrouped. So those 3 units become another rod, and now those units are gone. But these 3 rods, now that I have 3 of them, get regrouped as another flat. So now those 3 rods are gone because they got regrouped. And these 3 flats, again, since we're in base 3, anytime we get a group of 3, they get regrouped. So those 3 flats get regrouped as a cube. Now they're gone because they got regrouped. So now I have 1 big cube, 0 flats, 0 rods, 0 units. If I move on to the next one, add another unit. Now I have 1 big cube, 0 flats, 0 rods, 1 unit. Add another to that, and I'm going to go out to 30. So that would be 1 big cube, 0 flats, 0 rods, 2 units. Add another unit to that, and now that group of 3 now gets regrouped as a rod. So those units are now gone because they got regrouped as a rod. So I have 1 big cube, 0 flats, 1 rod, 0 units. And that is actually where I'm going to stop.